I was in the kitchen getting things ready for Thanksgiving, the pumpkin pie cooling, cranberry sauce just done, and the blue casserole dish set out like every year. The house smelled like nutmeg and old memories. Samantha hadn't called, but I figured she was busy. Still, I was hopeful. Then my phone buzzed. I wiped my hands, smiling, but when I opened the message, it read that, which shocked me. "Hey, Mom, about tomorrow. I think it's better if you don't come. We're keeping it small. Just my husband and his mother-in-law. Hope you understand. Better I don't come." I read it again. And then again. There was no "I'm sorry." No "next time, I promise." Expect that I would understand. Understand what exactly? That I don't fit. That I'm not polished enough, smart enough, quiet enough for her new life. That her mother-in-law, with her manicured smile and charity luncheons, makes a better impression at the table than the woman who once worked double shifts to buy her first pair of ballet shoes. Maybe it wasn't meant to be cruel. Maybe she didn't think it would matter. After all, I'd always been the easy one, the one who understood, the one who stepped aside. My name is Margarita Morrison. I'm 68 years old and I live alone in Oregon. In that moment, standing in a kitchen full of warmth and effort and memories, something cold settled in me. Sometimes a call isn't for them to listen. It's for you to know what still matters. I stood there, in my kitchen, and I called my daughter. She picked up after 2 rings. "Hi, Mom," Samantha said. "I was actually just thinking about you." I wanted to believe her, I really did, but a voice in me whispered. She wasn't. She had sent a text to uninvite me, to write me out of a tradition that once belonged to just us. But I didn't say that. I kept my voice steady. "I got your message, sweetheart. I just wanted to hear it from you." There was a pause. I heard her shift, maybe crossing her legs, maybe just her guilt moving. "Yeah. I figured you might call," she said. "It's not personal, Mom. It's just Marge is coming and Richard's brothers. It's more of a family thing this year." Family. I repeated the word in my head like a sour piece of candy I couldn't spit out. And I'm not that anymore. Not in the version of the family you've curated. "I carried you," I wanted to say. "I stayed when your father died. I made dinner out of nothing and gave you the last good coat when winter hit hard. But now I don't match the tablecloth." Still, I kept my voice calm to ask, "And I'm not family?" "No, that's not what I meant," she rushed in. "It's just, you and Marge don't always vibe, and she's very particular. I didn't want things to be uncomfortable." I almost laughed. "Uncomfortable? You mean real? You mean me?" "Uncomfortable for who?" I asked, my voice finally losing its softness. "For me, Mom. For me." Her words came out sharp like she'd been holding them in too long. That night at Richard's company dinner, remember? You wore that sweater with the cats on it. You asked Marge if she'd ever canned her own peaches. She looked at you like you were from another planet. She said I blinked. That sweater was a gift from her. She gave it to me when she was in college. She laughed when I wore it, said it made me look cozy and safe. She said later, Sam continued, her voice dropping, that she finally understood why I try so hard to be different. She said I was lucky to have escaped. That word hit me in the chest. Escaped, she said. It was humiliating, she whispered. For me. I let the silence sit between us. Heavy. Real. Then I spoke. "I remember last Christmas," I said carefully. "I made Marge that scarf. Spent weeks on it. My hands were sore, but I wanted it to feel personal. I even packed it with the gingerbread cookies you used to beg for as a kid." I looked out the window, but I wasn't really seeing the trees anymore. "And I saw it, Samantha. 2 days later, in your garage, by the recycling bin. The scarf, the cookies, still in the gift bag." My voice didn't crack, but it should have. "And when I mentioned it at dinner, you just smiled like I was mistaken, changed the subject, like it didn't matter." I took a breath. But it did matter. Not because of the scarf or the cookies, but because you didn't even flinch. You didn't ask. You didn't care that she threw me away with the wrapping paper. She didn't deny it, just said weakly. I didn't know what to say. You didn't have to say anything, I replied, but you didn't have to agree either. And that was it. That was the moment something inside me stopped folding. I took a breath. Not shallow, not shaky. Whole. I won't come, Samantha, I said. Not to protect your pride at the cost of my presence. I won't disappear to make you look polished. I'm your mother, not a secret. I hung up, and in the final silence the shame finally left me. It didn't belong to me anymore. When the people you love quietly move on without you, you can sit in the silence or ask yourself, what now? After I hung up, the house didn't feel colder. It felt still, like something had settled into place. I put away the napkins she once stitched by hand, folded them carefully, as if tucking away a piece of history I no longer needed to hold on to. Then I poured myself a glass of red wine, not to dull the hurt, but to honour the moment it stopped owning me. That night, I didn't check my phone, didn't look for pictures of her Thanksgiving table, didn't search for my place in a life that no longer made room for me. I just sat alone in my chair by the window, and for the first time, silence wasn't loneliness. It was true, not sharp, not cruel, just clean. I thought back to a moment I had buried deep, the night she introduced me to a colleague at her husband's firm. This is Margarita, my mom. She's old and slow now. She said it with a smile, meant it kindly, I think, but I remember the way she looked at me, a glance that said, don't say too much, don't be too much. And so I wasn't. I laughed, nodded, and held the bread pudding tighter in my hands, but something inside me had shrunk that night, a quiet folding in I'd carried ever since, until now. Because tonight I didn't feel small. I just felt done. The next morning I woke before the sun. Something in me had already decided it was time. I boiled water for tea, preheated the oven, and pulled out the cinnamon again, because I wanted my house to smell like something warm was starting. There, in the quiet hum of a morning that didn't expect anything from me, I wrote a small note and stuck it to the fridge. I've given so much love to others. Maybe it's time I save a little for myself. I go to the community centre that I hadn't stepped inside in years. Behind the desk sat a young woman. Hi there. Can I help you? I nodded, stepped closer, fingertips grazing the old wood counter. I'm not here for anything in particular, I said. I just wanted to ask, is there anything happening here for Thanksgiving? For seniors? Or anyone who might be spending it alone? Jenna tapped a few keys on her computer, her eyes scanning the screen. Not this year, unfortunately. We had something before COVID, but, well, things haven't quite bounced back. She gave me an apologetic smile. Sorry. Were you hoping to attend something? I paused. Then I surprised even myself when I said, no, I was hoping to host something. Jenna blinked, the corners of her mouth lifting. Really? That's kind of amazing. I shrugged, a little unsure. Just something simple. Tea, pie, maybe a place to sit together. She leaned forward, resting her elbows on the desk. We actually have an unused room upstairs. A kitchenette, too. I'd have to check with my supervisor, but I think we can make that happen. I said more firmly this time. Let's make it happen. In the community centre, I had tea. I'd brought my usual apple pie, the kind with real butter and a bit of lemon zest in the crust. I wasn't expecting a crowd. Truth be told, I wasn't sure I expected anyone at all. The door opened. A woman stepped in like someone who didn't want to be noticed, but was tired of being alone. She looked at the table, then at me. This is one of those widow old people things? I almost laughed. Numbered just tea. For anyone who doesn't want to spend another morning relaxing. She tilted her head like she wasn't sure if that was sarcasm or honesty, then walked in. I'm Marilyn, she said. My daughter-in-law thinks I talk too much. She pulled out a chair. Saturday. No fuss. Margarita, I said. Glad you're here. I poured her a cup. She sniffed it like a wine critic. Chamomile? And a splash of guilt. I smiled. That made her snort. We sipped in silence, comfortable like two dogs on the same porch. She finally asked, So what's this about? I shrugged. I got uninvited to Thanksgiving, figured I'd set a different table. She raised her eyebrows. By who? My daughter. Marilyn nodded like she'd already guessed. They always think it's not a big deal. Oh, it's just this year. But this year turns into next. And then they forget you ever used to be at the table at all. I didn't say anything for a while. Then I told her the part I hadn't said out loud yet. She said it was just family this time. That made Marilyn wince. She didn't try to smooth it over, just muttered, God, that's cold. I looked at my hands. The knuckles were stiff again this morning. Winter was creeping in. I raised her alone, I said, held 2 jobs. One time I walked 4 miles in the snow to get her antibiotics. She had this little cough and wouldn't sleep. I didn't even think about it. Just did it. Marilyn watched me, quiet but listening. I used to skip dinner so she could have second helpings. Sewed her prom dress from thrift store fabric. She never knew. I wasn't trying to be dramatic. I thought if I gave her everything, she'd always know where she came from. Marilyn took another sip. They do know, she said. They just think it's behind them now. That stung because it felt true. She added, My oldest sent me a plant last year. Died in a week. Never asked if I watered it. Probably didn't care. I laughed, but it wasn't really funny. I don't want to be bitter, I said. I just don't want to feel stupid for still missing her. Marilyn looked me in the eye. You're not stupid. You're a mum. That hit harder than I expected. I swallowed. I didn't come here to start a group, I said. I just didn't want to spend another morning waiting for a call that wasn't coming, she nodded. Then you're already ahead of most. She stood up and pointed at the empty chairs. You planning to keep doing this? I looked around. The pie, the tea, the faded stars on the carpet. Yeah, I think I will. Marilyn smiled for the first time. Good. I'll bring the mugs next time. I hate paper cups. I thought I was setting the table for someone else, but maybe I was finally setting one for myself. Forgiveness isn't an invitation back. Sometimes it's just the door you walk through, alone. Jessica called, said she wanted to meet at the cafe we used to go to, same chipped tables, same smell of burnt espresso. Jessica was already seated. Her scarf was expensive. Her eyes were tired. Hi, Mom. Cautious, like she didn't know which version of me would show up. Thanks for meeting me, she added, fingers tightening around the cup. I sat. No hug. No smile. She looked down at the table, then up at me. I wanted to talk about what happened. Thanksgiving. I shouldn't have texted you like that. I didn't answer, she went on. It wasn't just Marge, it was me. I was worried how it would look to have you and her in the same room. I nodded slowly, saying nothing. Jessica whispered, I guess I was embarrassed. There it was, the part that burned deeper than being uninvited. You weren't just embarrassed, I said. You erased me. Her mouth opened, but I raised a hand. I remember last Christmas, I said carefully. I made Marge that scarf, spent weeks on it. My hands were sore, but I wanted it to feel personal. I even packed it with the gingerbread cookies you used to beg for as a kid. I looked out the window, but I wasn't really seeing the trees anymore. And I saw it, Samantha, 2 days later, in your garage, by the recycling bin. The scarf, the cookies, still in the gift bag. My voice didn't crack, but it should have. And when I mentioned it at dinner, you just smiled like I was mistaken. Changed the subject, like it didn't matter. I took a breath. But it did matter. Not because of the scarf or the cookies, but because you didn't even flinch. You didn't ask. You didn't care that she threw me away with the wrapping paper. Samantha's mouth moved, but I kept going. You let her talk over me, correct me, critique the way I speak, the way I dress. and you never once stepped in." I stared right at her now. You let her treat me like I was out of place in my own daughter's life. She reached across the table. "I want to be part of your life again." I looked at her hand. It wasn't the hand of a villain. It was the hand of someone who finally noticed the door she'd closed, but I'd already walked through it. I took a breath. "I'm not angry anymore, Jessica." She nodded, hopeful. "But I'm also not coming back to the version of me you preferred." Her face changed, the tension in her jaw, the tremble of pride meeting truth. "So, where does that leave us?" she asked. I stood. "It leaves us with a chance. If you want to know me now, not just remember me as convenient." I paused. "I'm not a secret. I'm not a phase. I'm not someone you have to adjust for." I looked at her one last time. "If you're ready to meet me where I am, come. If not, don't worry. I've already got a table." I left before she could answer, and for the first time, I didn't look back. The next day, I showed up at the community centre early. Marilyn was already in the room, placing real ceramic mugs on the table. No more paper cups. "Told you I hated those things," she said, holding up a chipped blue one with a sunflower on it. I smiled. "That belonged to my husband," I said. "He drank cocoa out of it every winter." "Then it's perfect," she nodded. "A cup that knew what warmth was." By 10, the door opened. Then again. Jean came in first, short, rosy cheeks, with a scarf too big for the weather. Then Evelyn, tall and slow-moving, carrying a Tupperware box and a kind of unsure smile. We all sat. No one asked for introductions. "This is nice," Jean said softly, looking around. "What brought you?" I asked, keeping my voice easy. She hesitated. Then, "My son asked me to give them space for Thanksgiving. Said they wanted to host their first one without help, but they used my table, my silverware, my stuffing recipe." She looked down. "I baked 6 pies. They never picked them up." That silence, heavy, yes, but not lonely anymore. It was shared, heard. Evelyn cleared her throat. "My daughter sent a text last week, said they'd be going to her in-laws this year, again. She said, it's easier this way." She placed the Tupperware on the table and opened it. Lemon bars. "I wasn't sure if I should come, but I made these, in case I reached over and took one. Warm, soft, perfect." "You came," I said. "That's the part that matters." Marilyn leaned forward. "Maybe it's not them," she said. "Maybe it's us. Maybe we made it look too easy to leave us out." Jean nodded, biting her lip. "I didn't want to be a burden. I never spoke up. Now they assume I'm fine being alone." I thought of all the years I'd smiled through plans cancelled last minute, of gifts I wrapped for grandkids I never got to hand over in person. They got used to us saying it's okay, and maybe they forgot how to ask if it really was. There was no speech, no dramatic vow, just women passing a plate, trading stories, pouring tea. Something my heart hadn't felt in a long time. Not relief, not comfort exactly, but room. Room to exist, without needing permission. When the meeting ended, we stood together by the door. "We should give this a name," Jean said. Marilyn shrugged. "What for?" Evelyn smiled, eyes still damp. "So others can find it." I looked at the empty chairs we didn't fill that day. The teacups are waiting to be used. "Let's call it the table," I said, "because that's all we ever wanted. A place to sit, to be, to stay." We didn't rebuild what we lost. We built what was missing all along. I used to ask for a seat. Now I ask who else has been left out. We held the first holiday brunch on a cold Sunday morning. Nothing fancy, mismatched mugs, 2 crockpots of cider, a folding table covered in borrowed linens. But every seat was filled. Jean brought cranberry bars. Evelyn brought photos of her grandkids, whom she hadn't been invited to see. Marilyn came with 2 pies and a folding chair. "Just in case no one saves me a spot," she joked. We laughed like we had something to reclaim. We cried like we'd finally stopped making ourselves smaller. And when we raised our mugs, we didn't toast to forgiveness. We toasted to the truth. To start over, not softer, but louder. Jessica didn't come to the brunch. She texted that she wasn't sure she'd belong. I told her the truth. It's not about belonging to someone else anymore. It's about belonging to yourself. A week later, we met at the cafe. I brought her gingerbread cookies. She bit into one, slowly. She didn't apologize. I didn't ask her to. Some things aren't healed with words. They're healed with boundaries. We're not what we were, but we're not broken either. Every Sunday now, the room above the florist fills with women. Women who are told to sit down, stay quiet, and stop needing. They show up anyway. With Tupperware. With rage. With poems written on the backs of grocery lists. We don't try to fix each other. We remind each other, you're not here to be digestible. You're here to be real. A woman asked me once, so what is this exactly? I told her it's not therapy. It's not charity. It's not a support group. It's a revolution in a teacup. It's your seat, and it was never theirs to take away. I spent years being nice so I could stay invited. Now I build tables, and there's always one more chair for the woman who stopped asking. So, that's how the story ends. If this made you think, or if you've lived through something similar, share your thoughts in the comments. Our channel is a space for sharing tales of the elderly and family revenge stories from people who have weathered life's storms. Subscribe to the channel for more, because sometimes the deepest form of revenge is simply living on your own terms.